Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to pull together three completely fascinating areas of evolutionary biology to answer one really fundamental question. Why does navigating the modern world feel so incredibly unnatural? We're going to look closely at the gap between the wild world you were built for and the artificial one you actually live in right now.
Just ask yourself, why do simple, everyday routines, like flinching at an email notification, mindlessly stirring a spoonful of sugar into your coffee, or just checking the mirror in the morning, why do they often leave us feeling drained, stressed, and just kind of disconnected? It might feel like background noise, but your biology is actually screaming something much, much deeper.
See, there's this profound biological mismatch between the sensory-dense, physically demanding environment we evolved in for roughly 300,000 years and the hyper-abundant world we inhabit today. We basically traded our deep fluency with the natural world for artificial comfort, and well, our bodies just haven't quite received the memo.
So, here's how we'll break this down today. 1. Reading a living world. 2. The ancient sugar trap. 3. The naked ape's beard. And 4. Surviving the modern mismatch.
Part 1. Reading A Living World, the Lost Fluency of the Ethnosphere. Let's get right into it.
I want you to think about the sheer volume of data our ancestors processed every single day. Anthropologists like Wade Davis and Frank Marlowe document how ancient humans utilized what's called a grammar of animacy. Basically, they didn't just look at nature, they literally read it like a screen. Before artificial light, the Milky Way was so bright that up to 2,500 stars were visible, casting actual shadows on the ground. The Hadza of Tanzania track animals across dry rock just by reading disturbed dust and a single bent blade of grass. Aboriginal Australians navigated 3,000 kilometers of desert by encoding ecological data into intricate songlines. And Kalahari Bushmen could decode the exact movements of predators just from subtle shifts in bird alarms. The whole world was broadcasting endless, critical survival information, and we were completely fluent in it.
And that fluency, it extended right to our sense of smell. 1 trillion. That is a 1 with 12 zeros. That is the number of distinct scents the human nose can detect, all thanks to roughly 400 distinct olfactory receptors. In a world without engine exhaust or synthetic chemicals, those receptors allowed our ancestors to smell distant rain hours before it even arrived, or identify specific animal species just from invisible scent trails left in the brush. And the crazy thing? Your body still has this exact same hardware right now.
Anthropologist Elizabeth Cashton highlights exactly where this mismatch hits us the hardest. In the ancient world, threats caused acute stress, a short, sharp physical response followed by genuine physiological recovery. But today, because your amygdala is now processing sudden email alerts and text messages instead of a literal predator in the brush, your body is suffering from chronic low-grade stress. The alarm system turns on, but it never fully turns off. There's just no natural recovery phase built into your daily routine anymore.
So how do we actually fix that? Well, neuroscientist David Strayer found something absolutely incredible. Taking just 4 days in a genuinely natural environment, completely away from modern technology and screens, allows the prefrontal cortex to finally rest. The result of that break? It boosts creative problem-solving by a staggering 50%. Your brain isn't broken. It just desperately needs the environment it was actually calibrated for to properly reboot.
Moving on to Part 2. The Ancient Sugar Trap, a craving older than humanity.
Now, you might think of a sugar craving as a modern weakness, but it is ancient, like really ancient. Research on 30-million-year-old fossilized primate teeth from Egypt's Fayum Depression reveals something totally fascinating. Dental anthropologist Ian Toll noted that these early ancestors already carried the TAS1R2 gene for sweetness. They were actively seeking out soft, ripe, sugary fruit for rapid energy. So yeah, that craving for sugar is literally older than humanity itself.
For millions of years, sugar was the scarce, highly dangerous luxury that had to be fiercely earned. We go from primates 30 million years ago scavenging fleeting ripe fruits, all the way to humans 10,000 years ago risking fatal cliff falls just to rob wild beehives in Spain. Around 8,000 years ago, New Guinea domesticates a grass called Saccharum robustum just for chewing. And it wasn't even until the 4th century CE in India that this cane juice was boiled into storable crystals known as sharkara. Bottom line, sugar was incredibly rare. And because it was so rare, our bodies handled it just fine for a very, very long time. Despite popular myths that farming immediately ruined our teeth, Christina Adler's 2013 DNA study on ancient dental calculus proved that the human oral microbiome remained remarkably stable for 7,500 years of agriculture. Those modern cavity-causing bacteria, they only became truly dominant in our mouths very recently. Anthropologist Sidney Mintz's data really illustrates the historical rupture here. We went from consuming just 4 pounds of sugar per capita in Britain in 1700 to 18 pounds by 1800. The Industrial Revolution suddenly handed our ancient, highly conserved 30-million-year-old craving an unlimited, cheap, year-round supply of sugar. Your biology was built for scarcity, but the industrial machine handed it infinite abundance. No wonder we're struggling. Part 3. The naked ape's beard. Contradictions on our skin.
To understand the beard, we first got to understand why we got naked in the first place. Around 1.2 million years ago, a date pinpointed by the spread of the MC1R gene for dark protective skin, humans evolved bare skin. But why? Well, Nina Jablonski's thermoregulation hypothesis suggests bare skin enabled really efficient sweating, so we could hunt on the scorching African savanna without overheating. Meanwhile, Mark Pagel points out that shedding our fur eliminated hiding spots for dangerous ticks and lice. Both are brilliant survival strategies. But here's the bizarre twist. Developmental biologist Sarah Miller points out that we didn't actually lose our hair follicles. Nope, we still have the exact same follicle density as a chimpanzee. Instead, we simply downgraded most of our thick, pigmented terminal hair into fine, basically invisible vellus fuzz across our bodies. Yet for some reason, the male face remained this mysterious, hormone-triggered outlier, producing thick terminal hair right at puberty.
So why the face? Well, Charles Darwin assumed beards evolved simply to attract mates, kind of like a peacock's tail. But modern attractiveness studies by researchers like Barnaby Dixon show that female preferences for beards are actually highly inconsistent. What is consistent, however, is male-to-male competition. Exhaustive studies show beards function primarily as a signal of formidability. They are consistently perceived by other men as signaling older age, higher social dominance, and increased aggression. It's a signal aimed sideways at rivals, not forward at potential mates.
And this rival-focused theory is eerily supported by recent demographic history. Take Britain between 1842 and 1971, for example. Beards and mustaches noticeably spiked in popularity precisely during eras when there were more unmarried men competing for a smaller pool of available women. Whenever male-to-male competition for partners was at its highest, facial hair absolutely flourished as a social tool.
To put all this skin and hair evolution into perspective, we can actually map our timeline using, of all things, lice genetics. Yeah, lice. We lost our fur 1.2 million years ago, but by analyzing the genetic split between head lice and clothing-dependent body lice, researchers proved our ancestors survived entirely naked for hundreds of thousands of years. Habitual clothing didn't become a conservative reality until about 72,000 to 170,000 years ago. So we were wild, naked, and perfectly adapted to our environment for a very, very long time before fabric or modern comfort ever even entered the picture.
Which brings us to part 4, surviving the modern mismatch, a gap in the timeline. Here's the reality. You are running ancient perceptual hardware built for a living landscape, but you're forcing it to process a screen-saturated artificial world. You're feeding a 30-million-year-old scarcity reflex with infinite industrial sugar. And your physical traits, from sweating right down to that stubble on your jaw, are literally solutions to ancient savanna problems. The exhaustion, the cavities, the chronic stress, they really aren't flaws in your willpower. They are simply the inevitable result of an ancient, perfectly tuned survival machine trying its absolute best to navigate an alien timeline. So, as you go about your day-to-day, when you flinch at a screen, crave a sweet, or touch your face, what ancient world is your biology still tirelessly searching for? Beneath the surface of your modern habits, your 300,000-year-old hardware is still awake, it's still listening, and it is still trying to survive a wild, magnificent world that simply no longer exists. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and hey, stay curious out there.